Anybody out there? I like how I just randomly go live and never know if people are actually gonna show up or not. Oh man, this is fun. Do. So for anybody who watches this later, as you can see, I'm sitting in the front seat of my box truck. I'm not moved back in. I'm just going live from the front seat of my box truck. Cuz. Oh man. Ooh, did I not make this public? Hi, Nancy. How are you? Everything cooled down for a bit, and today it got kind of warm again. I was like, dang it. I am doing all right. I'm just getting my head back together. There was still money spent today that, sort of wasn't planned money. And still some things that need to happen before I'm done by the mid end. I never call it middle end of October. So, I'm working through, but this also needs to happen. Oh yeah, Purple Tia. Some people watch the football. Some of my actors are late to stage because they're watching the football. I don't know much about the football. So when people talk about it, I just kind of like phase out because I'm like, I understand the concept of football, but I don't really follow the football. But I'm glad you took a pause from your football because I know people who love it are like passionate about it. Actually, the funny thing was I heard my coworker next to me like listening to the football the other day, and I was like, I heard a bunch of cheering and certain words, and I was like, they must be watching the football. Yay, we got a bunch of people who have popped in at this point. I'm on my phone, so it might be a second for me to like pay attention to the or at least catch up with the scroll. I mean, even when I have the best setup, it's still a second for me to catch up with the scroll. Judith Wilson, William Hudson. Jesus, I can't read. Judith, thank you. I am so happy that it's back. It doesn't seem to be leaking. The leak seems to be gone. And so let's hope it's all good. And it's just one of those things that happen that all you can do is fix it and move forward from it. Thank you, Gina. Mickey and Felix are still in the apartment right now while I'm sitting on the box truck. It was so nice to be able to run errands for myself. Even though I'm super grateful because one of my coworkers picked me up when I dropped off the box truck, drove me to pick up the box truck, and only wanted a bit of coffee for it. So thank you for being my transportation. But it was so nice being able to just like run my own errands and not have to like figure out things with other people and coordinate and all of that. Diana, I'm sure it was a pleasure meeting you at RTR as well. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do RTR this upcoming January. It depends on how the schedule works out. I don't know. Depends on dates. Just depends on how the schedule works out. So my life is way up in the air right now after end of contract. Oh my gosh, leave her wild. Jaylena's in the house. What's up? Earl Blackman says, what happened to the truck? The truck had a coolant leak. And so they needed to track down the source of the leak. They did, and it was something called the crossover valve. Then it took them a while to find it. They found it, and then they had to do the actual repair, and it just took the time it took. And they really did try to work with me and keep it from being too expensive. And it was just one of those things that was complicated. If I'd let it go on, I could have damaged my engine. So the fact that I found it, got it taken care of, got it repaired, like, it saved the engine, which is the most important thing, is that it saved the engine. um and sometimes, yeah, it sucks to have to take on a repair like this, but it's better to find it, fix it, and not have it progress. Even it'll hurt worse financially if it progress than anything else. So it was what it was. I took care of it, and hopefully there will be no major issues with my home in the near future. But you never know. Honestly, to be quite honest, like, living in a vehicle is a gamble. Now, you can't argue living in a house is a gamble depending on where you live, because you can live in areas that have hurricanes, or like you could have, like, my coworker actually was telling me there was a freak accident. She got a brand new car, had it parked in front of her house. Somebody didn't do their job properly, who was cutting down trees, and a tree fell on her car and destroyed it. So, like, sometimes, like, there's freak accidents, but that can happen to people's roofs in their actual normal houses. I mean, luckily she wasn't living in her car, but that was just an example of, like, a freak accident. The world happens, and all you can do is, like, work and move forward, which is what I was trying to do. But I was also stressed out the whole time, to be honest. Like, I was stressed out. I was stressed out about, finding the problem. I was stressed out about finding the part. I was stressed out about affording the repair, and I kept trying to push it down. So to be able to kind of let some of that go feels good. Boo, 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 boo. Hopefully that answered your question, Earl. It was a coolant leak, and so they had to track down what was causing the coolant leak, basically. I was hoping it was going to be like a hose or something and be really cheap. Unfortunately, it wasn't. Jay Lena. Oh, I got stuff to figure out. I need to text you. Because I have stuff to figure out for November and December. Judith says, no, you got to come to RTR. It's Felix's first one. You know what? Felix has been spoiled by house life. So I'm going to have to give him a gentle reintroduction to, like, box truck life, because he's, like, so little. Well, he's not that little. He's a pretty big cat for his age. But, he's so young. And, like, he was in the box truck for a little bit, but then we were in the tiny house, and then we were in the little apartment. So I think, like, he's going to go through a whole stress situation again when we move back into the box truck. Mickey will be fine. And so he's going to have to be, like, what are words I'm thinking of? He's going to have to be, like, just re-indoctrinated to sort of life in the box truck. And it might be a little bit of an adjustment for him. He's a little fraidy cat. That's the funny thing. Like, he is such a little fraidy cat. Like, if a door opens, he's not running out the door. He's getting as far away from the door that just opened as humanly possible, or as catly possible. He's like, I'm going in the other direction. So yeah, and, like, Mickey, usually if Mickey hears people's voices, he'll, like, cautiously come up and be like, okay, I hear you. Mom's cool with you. Okay, you can pet me. Felix has stranger danger and just runs. Stranger danger, he just runs. So where is I? Princess Pamela says, who do you use in Ashland? It's my halfway point between two cities. Good to have a good mechanic on the way. I went to Oregon Light Truck and RV. And it's what, on Crater Lake Highway. Very sympathetic if you live in your vehicle. They work with people who live in their vehicles all the time. Because they're light truck and RV, sometimes their prices are a little bit better than, like, what you would get at a commercial shop that focuses on commercial vehicles. So, like, businesses that have, like, one truck might use them instead of a commercial place, because, they deal with individual owners a little better. Now, because they also deal with heavy vehicles, there's also that. But yeah, Oregon Light Truck and RV, and of course they do vans as well. So like, yeah, I really like them. It's, they've been chill. And I find people who don't have super fancy like waiting rooms and stuff, because all that stuff costs money. Like they're more down to earth people that you can kind of talk to. So yeah, I've liked Oregon Light Truck and RV on Crater Lake Highway, I believe. I don't remember addresses off the top of my head. I write things down for a reason. Where am I? Nancy McIntyre, thank you for the $5, helping me recover in the pocketbook a little bit. I can't even say words. So easy to help a girl out with the little dollars. Thank you so much. And Iris Otten, thank you for the $50. Anything I can put back in the bank account is totally helpful. So thank you for the $50 for me to try to recover a little bit from this. Lever Wild says, yes, I'll be gone for October and back in November. Awesome, because I'll be done at the middle end of October. So if you're in Oregon in November, then we should be able to figure out a way to sync up, which would be amazing. Because I would love to sync up with you. Divine Ref says, now that's a wonderful sight. Glad you got the truck back. I am so glad as well. Tina's Outsider says, you have to go to RTR Dawn if I'm going. If there's money, I gotta go where the money is. Sort of my next contract is like super important. It's super important to what I can do in the next year and what I can do in the next coming years. And if that has to come at the sacrifice of RTR, it has to come at the sacrifice of RTR. Because my long-term, goals are really linked to this next job. So I go with their dates, and anything that doesn't work around their dates, I have to let go of. Julie says, hi, Dawn. How are you doing? What's up? How you doing? I should be going to Texas at some point as well. But I'm not going to say dates because right now there's a lot. But during my break time, I may be going towards Texas or in the Texas area. But I don't advertise too much until I have things fully set. Jeffy's mom, thank you for the $5. Everything goes back into the the chunk of money that was cut to like rescue the truck. Thank you, Nancy McIntyre, for reminding people to hit the thumbs up. It certainly does help when I get the thumbs up. Every thumbs up counts. Nancy McIntyre is saying 91 people here and only one thumbs up. Please help a girl out. Definitely help a girl out. My channel is in recovery right now. I did what I had to do, but my channel is in recovery right now. Julie says, I'm in Texas. I hope to hear more about it when you are coming here later, if you do come to Texas. I will definitely, when it's more of a solid plan, I'll definitely say more about it. Nancy McIntyre says, I'm going to North Carolina in November to meet Carolyn's RV life. That sounds like fun. November is like a weird month for me. I have more of a idea of what I'm going to be doing in December. November is a weird month for me because there's some things up in the air about November. And it's funny, people keep asking like, hey, Dawn, what are you going to do when your contract ends? And I'm like, there were two things I thought was going to happen. One of those things got canceled. It would have happened at the end of October. That thing's not going to happen, which is why I never talked about it. And I wanted to do it, but I didn't know if I would have the money to do it. And then when I had to repair the truck, I definitely knew I wasn't going to have the money to do it. And then it got canceled. It was a thing with friends, and it just ended up falling through. And so I only have the one other thing closer to December now. And otherwise, I do not know. They're like, are you going to do this? I'm like, I do not know. I need to get a sense of money at the end of my contract, and then I'll have a much better, broader scope of what I can and can't do. Because at the very least, I don't want to divert to, depending on how much money I have now, gas, thank goodness, it's still not cheap, but it's definitely gone down since, a few months ago when I drove up here. Right now, I haven't had to use a lot of gas because I can walk a lot of places. I walk to work every day. I walk to the store when I can, unless I need to go someplace that's out in Medford. When I go to Medford, I usually drive. If I don't have to go to Medford, then I'll usually walk, and I'll use local places where I can buy stuff. So I haven't had to buy a lot of gas. And when you have a vehicle that's as big as this, when you have those more gas consumption vehicles, you get it for the size, but sometimes, depending on what vehicle you have, that comes at a sacrifice of MPG. And this box truck is what it is. It gets about 10 miles to the gallon on average. A little less, a little more, but mostly 10 miles to the gallon on average. And there's a heck of a lot of hills around here. So walking when I can is very, very important. Even when I was still full-time in the box truck while I was working, I walked everywhere I could walk, and I only drove when it was absolutely necessary. So I haven't had to go crazy on gas since I've been working. And I still want to be very cautious about how much gas I'm burning as I think about what I'm doing between the end of this contract and start of my next contract at the beginning of next year. So brain stuff. I am happy to I would love, you know what I miss? I miss the desert. I absolutely miss the desert. I love the desert. I just miss it. I miss a nice peaceful spot in the desert. And the impression of the desert on cartoons and TV is always this barren wasteland. And that's a certain type of desert. Anybody who's been to New Mexico or Arizona knows, there's all kinds of life and stuff going on in deserts. And I really miss a nice desert boondocking spot. And winter, the colder months are the great time to be in the warmer areas that tend to have those spots. So I don't mind spending some time in those spots. So I'd love to get a chance to do some of that between this job and the next job. I start talking and I'll be missing stuff. I will try to figure out a Texas meetup if I head in that direction, because it seems like there's a lot of people interested in that, even though Texas is a huge state, so the chances, I don't know exactly where people are. Texas and California are huge, so saying you're in Texas is very non-specific because that state is huge. But anyway, I might try to figure out some, hey, I'm here if you want to hang out type things in November and December. Where am I? Thank you for everybody who's hitting the thumbs up button. Helps me out. Like I said, my channel's in recovery. I don't mind. I did what I had to do, so I'm not too bothered about it. People walking down the street, why is this girl, because I talk with my hands without realizing, why is this girl talking? Because I have my phone sitting in my steering wheel, so it looks like I'm talking to my steering wheel very expressively to people walking down the street. It's funny. Julianne says it'd be cool to see a theater company surprise you with a bonus for staying till the end of your contract when the show is over. I the show closes on October the 15th, which is the last day of my contract. And they're giving me extra time in the apartment, just to give me space to move out. They're not even demanding me out the last day of my contract. So I'll literally have like extra days I can use in the apartment if I need that time to transition. Just cause. So, they're as kind to me. They've been very kind to me. Jaylena, tell Isaac I said hi as well. Princess Pamela says, you look so happy. Thank you. A bus life story. Yay. Hi, Isaac. Tiny Dream Bus says, I'm glad you said that about the desert. I still can't decide if I'll go down this winter or stay in the mountains. I mean, beautiful choices against beautiful choices are always wonderful things. Boop, boop. What time is it? Okay, it's 5:51. Oh my gosh. You like my shirt? It says, wait a minute, let me take off the keys. It says the original computer, and it's a picture of a pencil, and then it says print, and then it says delete. I gotta love this shirt. It's kind of funny. The problem is I wear my shirts, and then I'll be walking down the street, and people will be like, your shirt's funny, and I'm like, wait, what shirt did I wear today? Oh my goodness. I have nothing. Like right now I'm just chilling, being like, I got my truck back. I'm taking the truck back to its parking spot tomorrow. I got the shirt off Amazon. I can find the link. Hi, Ember. Ember's gonna be a whole person when I finally see her in person. I always say that, like when kids actually start walking and talking and stuff, I'm like, wow, you're a whole person. Of course, they're whole people the day they're born, of course, but it's always a joke. I'm like, oh, by the time I see you, you'll be a whole person. And like I said, I got nothing. So if anybody got any questions, I'll answer any questions I can answer. Michelle, Christmas is when my son was 9. He asked for a 3D printer for Christmas. Wow, the kids these days. Oh, that's funny. I labeled a pencil with 3 Ds, like D, 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 and wrapped it up with a notebook, and he thought it was, I thought it was funny. He wasn't amused. Michelle, that is great. That is awesome. You got 9-year-olds asking for 3D printers. What did I want when I was 9? Like Legos? Legos, maybe. Video game systems. You got 9-year-olds asking for 3D printers. Oh my gosh. Tiny Dream Bus says Ember looks different every video and live. Yeah, because she's at that point. Like, it's crazy how much we change, like, in the first 2 years of our life. And then we kind of, like, slow down. But, like, in that first 2 years, when you really think about, like, how much progress we make from basically being a helpless lump to, like, being able to walk, talk, have learned basic language function, and without, like, any formal, like, training, just picking it up from the world. Like, man, it's kind of impressive. Elaine Ferry says, you have such a gorgeous smile and a total cheery laugh. Thank you so much. A Bus Life Story says she might be talking back. Michelle Christmas says, needless to say, he never got it. He never got the 3D printer. See, my mom would have been like, when you can afford a 3D printer, You can have a 3D printer. I hope you get a job and save for it. Charvar said, Legos, LOL, not even a video game till 10. How old was I when I got my first video game system? I know what my first video game system was. It was the original Nintendo. But see, back in those days, now, you ain't getting all the stuff you get in the box with, like, the video game system. Like, with the Nintendo, you had the Nintendo, you had the cartridge with 2 games on it, you had the little shooter gun, you had 2 controllers. Like, you could legitimately just get the base Nintendo set and play with your friends. That ain't happening with consoles today, and it costs like 5 times as much. So it's kind of like crazy. But like, I learned the scam when I was a kid. And so, like, when I was a kid, what I would do is I'd be like, Mom, I don't want anything else for Christmas except this one expensive thing. Like, really, that's all I want. That's all I want. And, my mom would be not that person just because she had been, like, denied so much. Now, mind you, she wasn't going to go out and drop money on me just randomly, but, like, for Christmas and birthdays, because she had never had good Christmas and birthdays, she always tend to, like, not want to get one thing. So I would still get some other things, but if I got an expensive thing, then I wouldn't get, like, 5 expensive things. It'd be like, the video game system and, like, some doll that wasn't too expensive and, I don't know, Legos. And this was before Lego sets cost $1 billion, because now those things are expensive as heck, too. Gina G says, have you lost a lot of weight? You look thinner. No, I've been struggling to keep any weight off. I've been going up and down in about the same 10 pounds for months, which is funny because I go to the gym like 5 days a week, but I keep falling victim. It's always somebody though, and I know it's mostly my eating, and there's really nothing I can do about that except try to get more disciplined on it, because when I eat a certain way, I lose weight, and then I slip up, and it turns into, instead of one slip up, it turns into a slide. I don't know at this point. I feel like, at least because I'm going to the gym as much as I'm going, it's at least keeping me from, like, just gaining weight as opposed to this losing and gaining cycle, because I haven't gone over a certain number. I just keep this rubber band within the same, like, space. So yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. Leave Her Wild says, when I was 8, I got a Land Before Time tape player, LOL. That's actually kind of cool. That's totally cool. I actually like that. I used to have a strawberry shortcake record player because I'm old. So I actually had a record player that was, like, built for kids, and it was one of those ones that closed and it has a little handle on it. And I had that when I was really little, but I used that to listen to books on records. That's how old is that I actually had, like, little books you could read along while the record played. And then when I got a little bit older, we kind of transitioned into cassettes being the main form of media. So then I had books on tape. But I actually, like, my first, like, books where I was reading along and I was really little was books on records, like the little tiny 45s or whatever. And I had a little strawberry shortcake record player that you could, like, close and carry around. So technically it was a portable record player. Candy Purple says, love your videos. Do you think you'll ever permanently stay in a Sticks and Bricks home? At this point, I don't see why. Some of it is for monetary reasons. Another is the career I chose. Like, there's other stage managers here that have, like, apartments and homes in other states that they're hardly ever at because they're always working in a state that's not their home state. So they're paying all this rent for apartment. Like, if you have a 9 to 5, sometimes you feel like you spend more time outside of your home than in it. But at least, like, if you live in Missouri and you work in Missouri, you go to bed at your house in Missouri all the time. And that's not the case for a lot of the stage managers. And I'm definitely trying to get into the union and continue to do well-paying stage management work, not sort of work for the little theaters that can barely pay, but really transition into sort of jobs like OSF, if not also returning to OSF in future. And so I prefer this or even a new rig in the future over having an apartment in a state that I would abandon on occasion or have to sublet or something like that. Like, for me, I don't see the value of a sticks and bricks at this point. If something in life changes in the future, maybe, but right now it doesn't make sense for what I want to do, whereas this does make sense. So yeah, like one foot in front of the other. I'm trying to reach the goals I want to reach with this first, which is having this as a mobile home between jobs. There's no reason for me to settle down anywhere at this point. Where am I? Charv Hart says, I got the Super NES, my first in-home video game console. I missed the Super NES because I think I got the regular Nintendo just as the Super Nintendo was about to come out, and my mom's like, I'm not buying you a new video game system. You gotta be happy with what you got. And so the next Nintendo I got was the Nintendo 64, which was a while later, but in between that I had the Sega Genesis. Because then I went Sega. I was Sega loyal for a while. A lot of people had the Super NES. I never had the Super Nintendo. I only had the Nintendo and then the Nintendo 64, but I had the Sega Genesis. So I think they were within the same generation. Weren't they competitors? I think. Anyway. I love how gaming has evolved. When video games first came out, it was this weird thing. But now video game systems have been out so long. I'm gonna go super nerdy. They've been out so long. It's this normal thing that people have this history with. And it's not just the gamers. It's people have these casual sort of histories with gaming, what system they had first. And it's just a normalized sort of toy people have had, where there are people who are 60, 50, 40 years old who are sharing their favorite games with their grandchildren now, which is really interesting because back in the day when Atari came out, it was the parents are these kids spending all their time on these video game systems, and now it's just a thing that have existed throughout generations. And so parents are as likely to play old games with their kids as they are to go out and throw a football. And as long as you have a good balance between the two, I think that's fine. You can play Madden on the TV and also play football outside. And as long as you're getting a good mix of both, I think that stereotype of the gamer that's this overweight person who never gets out for physical activity has sort of gone away a little bit, which is kind of cool. But y'all remember the days when you had to go to the arcade for the good games? The old heads remember that. Anyway, how did this become a video game discussion? Bye, Julie. Tiny Dream Bus said, I had the strawberry shortcake one too with the record. With the records and with pictures on them that smell yes, all the strawberry shortcake stuff had that fake strawberry smell. I remember that. Vanglow says, I can still hear that chime to turn the page. Yeah, you're reading a little book and then it's ding. Remember, you guys are taking me back to my childhood, man. Charles Hart says, I remember those record players, Teddy Ruxpin tape players before I was old enough to go to school. Oh, Teddy Ruxpin. It's funny. I didn't think he was creepy when I was a child, but now when I see a Teddy Ruxpin, I'm like, that's a creepy toy, because it's just like, with like the sound coming out that's completely disconnected from the mouth movements. And so you look at a Teddy Ruxpin as an adult, which is funny because as a kid, I was like, oh, cool, it's talking bear. But there's like this static mouth movement while like this completely disconnected story is being told by Teddy Ruxpin. But you know what was always creepy? Furby. Furby was always creepy. He's still creepy. I don't care what anybody says. Judith says, I remember those books on records. All I wanted was an Easy Bake Oven. I never got it. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, Easy Bake Ovens were cool. Hang on. Ugh. All right, I'm back. Yeah, but Easy Bake Ovens were really, really cool. But it's funny, the whole thing was run by like a super hot light bulb. And we were like, this is safe to give to kids. A lot of people feeling the Easy Bake Oven. What was funny is I did have the Easy Bake Oven, and I remember for some reason what my mom ended up doing instead was she was trying to teach me how to bake. And so we would take the little round pans from the Easy Bake Oven, and we would cook together in the kitchen, and we would make tiny little cakes but put them in the real oven instead of the Easy Bake. And I think like there was like a thing that you used to push the pan in, and I think it burned or something, so maybe that's how we started doing it. But I just remember us using the Easy Bake pans, but using them in the real oven, which makes no sense because I did have an Easy Bake Oven for a while. Oh, man. I'm seeing some love for the Atari and Pong up in the chat. We're just talking about like toys at this point. This is like a retrospective on toys from our childhood that we either had or didn't have. Carmen says, I started on Atari. I feel old. My cousin had Atari. When Atari came out, that was around the time my mom was still like anti-video game. And by the time the Nintendo came out, because like, you know, when they had all the cousins together, like, it was a good way if we couldn't be outside and just have us in a room all focused on a TV long enough for the adults to do whatever they needed to do. And so I think she also saw, like, again, as long as I was behaving myself, also getting outside to play and all that other stuff, I think by the time the Nintendo came out and I really wanted one, she had sort of changed her mind about video games. But she wouldn't give me an Atari. I wanted an Atari. She refused. You don't need that thing. You can play with it when you at your cousin's house. Raven says, greetings from Central Point. My folks had a 45 record player that hooked up to the radio for sound to listen. Wow, that's cool. If you still had that, or they still have it, or it's still around, that's probably worth a lot of money. I'm seeing love for all kinds of video game systems in here. Oh, that's awesome. Lisa, let me say, your name is Lisa? Leasa. I'm going to assume I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it says, I started on Atari. I built my first Atari in a shoebox with my 7-year-old daughter. That is cool. This is actually really, really cool. Tina, thank you for publishing the Patreon. Tiny Dream Bus, yes, Furbies are creepy. Craig Browning X, am I attending Gutted this year? No, Gutted is too far away and also overlaps with my work schedule, so it's impossible. It's not an accessible event for my work schedule. Charm Hearts, back to Teddy Ruxpin, is like, yeah, I think he's creepy now. Jeffy's mom says Chucky is creepy. Well, the thing is, if you think Chucky is creepy, Like, Chucky mutilated is creepy, but when you really look at Chucky before the mutilation in the original Child's Play, like, he just looks like my buddy. So if you find that Chucky creepy, then you also find Cabbage Patch Kids and My Buddy creepy, which is possible because in the right context, those toys are creepy as well. It's just the ones that talk, especially because the mouths don't sync up with the words, especially like back in the 80s and 90s, they were like, if we get the mouth to do this, that's enough. But it's like, the mouth is doing this no matter what you're saying, like, this is the only motion that is happening, whereas real speech has like inflections and stuff. Like, if you ever watch a really like multifaceted puppet versus one that just has an open and closed mouth, you can kind of see the difference. #nerd. So much love for Atari in this in this chat. Charv Hart says, I never wanted a Furby. Princess Pamela says, I love my Easy Bake Oven. Does anyone remember Increasable Eatables? I don't think I remember that. Charv Hart says, remember my buddy and kid sister? Yep. I had 2 my buddies and 2 kid sisters. Leave Her Wild says, I was literally saying it took 45 minutes to cook in a 3-inch cake, fan, because it was just a light bulb. Yeah, it was like a 100-watt light bulb in the Easy Bake Oven, which was actually hot enough to burn you. So again, we gave this to children. Like, it was hot enough to burn you, but it did take a long time to cook on the flip side. How about the Baby Alive doll? Baby Alive, oh my goodness, yeah, that was another one it was just so weird. Like, when you see it as like an adult, it's like, this is a weird, creepy toy. Craig Browning says, I was playing video games in the arcades when I was small and being very into them. I got one of the first generation Atari units, and it seemed to not long after lose its luster. I mean, I think Atari is one of those things that it's like, it's just a legendary system. So now it's like gone back to being cool. But yeah, like, once the Nintendo came out, or if you were in Japan, the Famicom, and I think the Famicom, I don't know what the overlap of the Famicom, which is what we call the Nintendo in America, I'm a nerd, and the Atari was. But I know, like, when we still had Atari in America, like, Japan already had the Nintendo. So by the time, like, Atari became something like most American homes could bring into their home, like, video games were already past it. It's just that the technology hadn't gotten to the US yet. So it felt like a really short window where, like, Atari was the thing and then there was something better. And that happened a lot, especially like with Nintendo, because Nintendo and Sega were both developed in Japan. So it's like, it had to be released in Japan, and then, like, the crossover had to happen. Nerd! Good pronouncing, yay, thank you. Kenyatta says Nintendo rules. Barbara says, I actually found our old Atari console and games in the attic packed in a box. Gave them to my nephew to add to his Nintendo console collection. He was amazed we had it still. Yeah, like, I wish I still had my Sega Genesis, because now that thing's a legend. Kenyatta says, Cabbage Patches are awesome. I had them when I was younger. I did too. I had a huge collection. I was a Cabbage Patch collector. I had so many of those dolls. Again, all the things you don't know are going to be worth money when you grow up, because I have none of them now. I don't have access. They're gone. They died somewhere. You know, I don't know. Coralie says, I am shuddering at the thought of any of those types of dolls. Any doll that is designed to be lifelike creeps me out. Well, as a kid, I don't remember being creeped out by them. Until Child's Play came out, and then Chucky scared everybody. But before that, I was like good, and then like Chucky ruined everything. Indira, yeah, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name right, says I still have an Atari 2600. That is awesome. Coralie says, remember Elmo still, remember when, what was it, Tickle Me Elmo was like the toy that everybody was killing each other for in the stores? Like, people were like fighting over those things. Like, when like the Tickle Me Elmo, like seriously, like parents were getting in fist fights over this freaking, toy. Yeah. Beanie Babies! Earl Blackman pulling out another one of those like sensations that just had a long run. Jeffy's mom says, have you checked out Life of Anthony? Love his channel. I have been a subscriber to Anthony since his minivan days. So before the SUV, before the apartment, back when he was in the minivan, I was a subscriber to his channel. A lot of what I did with my first minivan was inspired by his early videos when he was living in his minivan. So, yes, I have heard of Anthony. He's also from Baltimore originally, and I am too. So that really, like, when I heard that in a video of his, I was like, subscribe, fellow Baltimorean. Marsha says, does anybody remember the big wheel? Of course, the big wheel is still the jam. I don't know what you're talking about. Woo! Where we at? I don't know how much longer, because I am going to go back in the apartment. I was just like, let me do a live. I haven't done a live in a while. And I just wanted to check in with you guys, and that's it. I didn't even have a really good reason to do a live, except I haven't like done one in a while. I am trying to come up with a schedule, especially now that my work schedule is softening. So it's like I still have shows 2 to 3 days a week, and unless an emergency comes up, I have shows 2 to 3 days a week for Tempest. So here's how my work works. I am the primary on Tempest. So every time there is a Tempest show, I have to be there, and I'm running backstage. And then I am a supporting ASM, or an understudy ASM, or an emergency ASM, however you want to say it, ASM being assistant stage manager, for 2 shows. Once on This Island and Confederates. And so in that support position, now that all the shows are running, if somebody gets sick, if somebody has an emergency or whatever, I can go in and work those shows backstage. So that's where my work is right now. So 2 to 3 days a week, I do a Tempest performance. And it switches out every week because we share the same stage with another show that's called Revenge Song. So when there's not a Revenge Song, there's a Tempest. And when there's not a Tempest, there's a Revenge Song. And when there's a Tempest, I am always at work. More than likely, I'm not going to get called in for a Once on This Island, but it is possible I could get called in for a Once on This Island. So ideally, if I know there's a Once on This Island, I should at least not be too far away. The chances of an emergency last minute is very, very slim. And so, like, more than likely, because I know there's 2 shows I'm going to do at the end of my contract for Once on This Island. But, yeah, that's a every once in a while, or if an emergency comes up thing, or if somebody has a planned out thing. Like, if somebody needs to be out of town for a couple of days and they would miss working backstage, I am the ASM replacement backstage in that situation. And for Confederates, I was the production assistant through the rehearsal process. So I was in the room taking notes, taking line notes, helping with props, helping track the show and put it together. And then once the show got on stage, I became the understudy ASM for that show. So if there was a reason for the ASM to not be able to run that track, I would go in to run that track. And that is basically, how my job is working right now. So for sure, I have 2 to 3 shows per week that I have to work. I might get called in for one of the other 2 shows that I'm also assigned to. I'm saying all that to say, because I only have those 2 to 3 shows per week, my load is lightening toward the end of my contract. And so I'm trying to find some space to do some YouTube stuff that I want to do that I haven't been able to get to, because my mind has been wrapped up with work at Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and it had to be for a certain amount of time. So my goals is to be more active on this channel again. And so I'm working towards that goal. And yes, I know, it's okay for me to like prioritize myself, prioritize my other work that's bringing in income, but I also want to prioritize rebooting this channel, getting some more consistency in it, and just putting more content out there, whether that's lives or recorded videos or other stuff. So yeah, we'll see how well I can meet those goals. I have some goals I've written down for that. And yeah, this is just my attempt to sort of re-energize being consistent with the channel. So I thank all of you for showing up, for dropping by, for this fun chat about video games and old toys and memories and van life and what's happening and what's coming up. If as I get more clear on things, I definitely will share, things that are happening with me. All right. I'm just looking at some of the last comments, but I'm gonna get out of here. There's probably some angry cats who are like, why haven't you come in this apartment and fed me yet? So thank you for everybody that showed up, and good evening, right? Evening, night, whatever it is time for you. People are in different time zones. Bye.